No one expects a single moment to change the way they see the world, but sometimes it happens without warning. A knock on a door, a tired face, a quiet room filled with the sound of someone working long past exhaustion. And on that evening, a wealthy landlord was about to witness something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. The rain had been falling for hours when Daniel arrived at the old apartment building. Collecting late rent was never his favorite part of managing properties, but he believed in staying involved in his business personally. Most tenants paid on time, but a few struggled. And tonight he was visiting one of the units that had been overdue for weeks. He climbed the narrow staircase, the faint smell of detergent and old paint lingering in the air. When he knocked, there was no answer at first. He was about to turn away when he heard a faint voice from inside, telling him to wait. The door opened slowly, and what he saw immediately caught his attention. Inside the small apartment, a young girl sat at a sewing machine near a table covered in fabric. The machine hummed steadily, and her hands moved carefully, though her shoulders drooped with exhaustion. A single lamp lit the room, casting long shadows across unfinished clothes stacked in neat piles. Daniel stepped inside, surprised by the quiet determination on her face. She looked tired, far too tired for someone so young, but she kept working even as she spoke to him politely. She explained that her mother was ill and resting in the next room. Sewing work was the only way they could afford medicine and food. Every night she worked until her eyes burned, trying to keep up with small orders from a local shop. Daniel listened, but what struck him most wasn't just the hardship, it was the calm strength in her voice, vocal courage. Just the hardship. It was the calm strength in her voice, or Kamesh. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't asking for sympathy. She was simply doing what needed to be done. He glanced around the apartment again. The furniture was worn but clean. Every object seemed carefully placed, as if pride lived there despite the struggle. The girl apologized for the late rent and promised they were trying their best. She spoke with sincerity, and Daniel found himself unable to interrupt. Something about the scene unsettled him, not because it was unfamiliar, but because it reminded him of a life he had almost forgotten. Years ago, before the success, before the investments and properties, he had known nights filled with worry and days filled with uncertainty. Seeing her there, still working despite exhaustion, brought those memories back with unexpected force. For the first time in years, Daniel left an apartment without asking for payment. But as he walked down the stairs, he couldn't shake the image of the dim lamp, the steady hum of the sewing machine, and the quiet determination in the girl's eyes. And he had no idea that what he would learn next day would change everything he thought he understood about hardship, proudfafs, resilience, and what it truly means to succeed. The next morning, Daniel couldn't focus on anything else. Meetings passed, phone calls blurred together. His mind kept returning to that small apartment and the girl working late into the night. Finally, he decided to visit again, this time not as a landlord, simply as someone who wanted to understand more. When he arrived, the atmosphere felt different. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the room in a way that revealed details he hadn't noticed before. Carefully folded clothes were stacked in boxes, each labeled neatly. A notebook lay open on the table, filled with measurements, orders, and calculations written in careful handwriting. The girl greeted him politely, surprised to see him again. This time, her mother was awake, sitting quietly nearby. She looked weak, her eyes carried warmth and gratitude as they spoke. Daniel learned that the sewing wasn't just temporary work. The girl dreamed of opening her own small tailoring shop one day. Every piece she stitched was a step toward that dream, even if the road felt impossibly long. What struck Daniel most was the way she spoke about the future. There was no bitterness in her voice, only determination. She believed that if she kept working, kept learning, and kept hoping, something better would come. That belief moved him more than he expected. Over the following weeks, Daniel began to help quietly. He connected her with a local supplier who offered fabric at a lower cost. He arranged for a community program to provide medical support for her mother. And most importantly, he helped her enroll in evening classes where she could study design and business skills. Months passed, and the small apartment slowly transformed. The sewing machine still hummed late into the evening, but now it carried a different sound, one filled with purpose instead. One afternoon, Daniel visited again and saw a small sign near the window. It was simple, handwritten, but filled with pride. It bore the name of her new tailoring service, the first step toward the dream she had refused to give up. Standing there, Daniel realized something profound. Wealth could build buildings and businesses, but determination built lives. Sometimes, all it took to change someone's future was noticing their struggle and choosing to care. As he left the apartment that day, the sound of the sewing machine followed him down the hallway. No longer a sound of exhaustion, but a rhythm of hope, steady and unstoppable.